Hello and welcome to Game Soup with Kayla and Chloe. This is a game design podcast where we throw ideas in a pot and see what's cooking. I'm Kayla Dice, and how are you doing, Chloe?
I'm good. I'm waiting for the postman. He's coming today, or she is coming, or they is coming, with a collection of zines that we will be selling at UKGE.
Ooh, nice. I had my Out of the Fold and Other Games order arrive the other day while I was busy at the footy. I delegated my housemate to bring it indoors.
You sent me a picture. It looks very nice.
It looks really cool. I'm very happy with this. I'm very excited to try selling this at UKGE and some other things. So yeah, I'm hopeful about that game. And otherwise, I've also had a decent but tiring week.
Yeah, that's a good sum.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was now just thinking, like, did I do anything fun to share in a sort of offer way? Oh, actually, no, I should do this. I launched a Patreon.
Yippee!
If you go to patreon.com/RatWaveGamehouse, or, you can find links on my social media or on my website, ratwave.uk, you can subscribe or pledge. Do you pledge to patrons? Basically, at any of the tiers, you will get access to in-development game drafts of like playtest playable ready versions. So on the website, on the Patreon now, there's drafts of The Gallant and the Virtuous and I'm with the Damned. So you can find both of them at any tier. At higher levels, you get extra benefits. So at the £5 tier, you get a digital access to all new self-published releases. So right now, that means you get you can get an itch code for Once Again We Are Defeated, which is a new version of a game of mine that's in the Out of the Fold collection. And at £10, you receive a 100% discount voucher for new releases on the Ratwave web store. So when I put up Out of the Fold and other games, if you are a patron at the £10 level, you will be able to get that basically for free, aside from shipping. That's my plugs up top out of the way. But that was, I did have a busy week, I guess, of doing a lot of game stuff. If you follow me on socials or subscribe to my newsletter, you'll have seen loads. But I did want to plug the Patreon. You gave me a very fun idea off podcast. You told me your idea that was very fun.
Yes, so J Dragon was doing a game jam this week, and it's like game jams on itch are just kind of like what made up a lot of the 20s, like the current decade of game design, like put a lot of us on the map and put us into making games, I think. So I think it would be cool to like explore that on the pod and like, can we make games for game jams?
Yeah, basically, I think we're going to talk about this jam specifically in this episode, but also new segment alert.
Whoa.
New segment alert. We might, be sort of trawling the jam boards more frequently to keep a lookout for jams and maybe just talk about them on the episodes. And also, given the format of them, I feel this definitely feels like a very high rate of games we might accidentally make from doing this. But yeah, Jam in Silence, Jason Jam is, I'll just read the description first. Negative space shows up frequently in art. The shape's formed by the absence of shape. Silence is the negative space of conversation. What emerges in the absence of sound? What does it mean to play without words? If every game is a conversation, what happens if we stop talking for a bit? So the goal is to design a game or adventure that uses silence in some fashion. And it's considered very like open to interpretation beyond like, hey, you do need to engage and not just use it for free promotion. And then there's also some sort of like some inspiration stuff. And one of the examples given was from Wonder Home, where like everyone asks a question and answers it silently without talking to other people. So I was going to say, do you have any games you've already written that use even like tiny bits of silence? Because I can think of some from my work.
I can't think of anything, I'll be honest. Like, a lot of my stuff is like you either answer your question aloud to like add to the sort of narrative of a thing, but like the answering a question for your own character silently is cool and it adds to the narrative, but nobody else needs to know it to add to the narrative, you know? Like, it informs your character.
So I've done like that specific instance a couple of times. Off the top of my head, I know with Terminal in character creation, you do give your character like a like name they had, like essentially a dead name that you are then directed to like cross out or destroy in some way without ever sharing with the other players in character creation. And that's like, you know a bit about this your character's backstory, but it's a backstory element that is like irrelevant to your present, like irrelevant to your present in terms of sharing with other people. So there it makes sense for that to be silent. Some sort of like Hugh the Line, I think like Out of the Fold has it just says ponder a question at the end, but like I don't spell out whether that's answering your own head or have a conversation about these. Could be either way. Sort of, I've definitely had sort of like, oh, here's an open question to think about as you leave the game, which isn't, it just, I think, different than when you have those things at the beginning. But yeah, do you have any immediate ideas off of silence?
Yeah, I mean, it's bringing to mind stuff like Alice is Missing, where everything's done by text. But I'm thinking, like, can we be doing things with sign language? Like, I don't know, casting spells with sign language or something. And it's like Inspirails is teaching you BSL, but...
Yeah. I do feel you've invented Inspirails again there.
Oh, well, there we go. I've not read it, so...
I know. I believe that has spells with sign language. I don't believe that ever has other stuff about, like, I've not read it, so I also don't know if it has anything about, like, restricting conversation in other ways. I also feel there's arguments to be made about, like, is a conversation in signing actually silence or not? Because it is obviously still...
Yeah.
I guess it's a question
of, communication.
Are you taking
I get what you mean.
Silence as about sound or as about the absence of communication? Because this also then throws the thing of like text communication is different. Like you are once again still communicating. There it's very much about like the sonic and sensory experience.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, I'm also thinking, I guess in terms of like information you are allowed to or not allowed to share, because I am thinking that in a lot of card games I've done, I remember for Out of the Fold, I do specify like there's a rule set where you can talk about what's in your hand, and then there's like an option rule where it says like, no, you can't. You can hint around this, but there is a restriction on what you were allowed to say.
It's like you got to figure out a way to communicate without saying any of the names of your cards or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like before we proceed with whatever idea we come up with on this episode, we need to decide, do we mean silence in a sensory way or in an information restriction way? Even what I think fit the spirit of the jam, I'm just like, what do we think we could do more with?
Yeah, I think not being able to like easily communicate is certainly within the thing. Is what I would like go to myself. Like maybe it's about like passing notes around a table or something, or like whispering in one person's ear and then they whisper in the next person's ear, sort of thing. Yeah.
I am now also wondering, which is I guess a mix about like the thing I was talking about with the terminal and like the one home example, it's something that informs your character, but then you don't share. And I'm also then wondering about like a game where you like make your characters at the same time, but in complete silence, and you can't like confer on anything, and then you have to throw your characters into like a first meeting.
Yeah.
But I'm also then like, what is the...
I think that's just every game of D&D, though.
It's true. But I feel like I'm now actually thinking...
It's like there's a thing I do for my D&D
I'm pitching
character.
Maybe some... Yeah, I guess I was about to say... Yeah, I feel I'm pitching something where it's this, but with an element of hidden role stuff. But I still can't figure out...
Yeah, I mean, there's a thing I do for my D&D character where I keep a journal of like her thoughts as I play at the table. And it's like an in-character thing, but I don't let anyone else read the thing unless like they actively take it off of me. It's not like, oh, here's what I was thinking in this thing. It's like my character's quite a secretive person, so it's like, yeah, you're writing down your notes and stuff. So I think like you're saying, a hidden role sort of thing, like a I'm thinking like a sort of detective-y thing where you're trying to solve a crime or something, but one of the detectives has done the crime, and
Yeah.
you're like trying. You can't just outright accuse somebody because then they'll get you or something. It's like a The Thing detective game.
The Thing detective. Actually, something about the Thing. I was now once thinking about, some kind of investigation thing where there has to be silence in some way as you do it.
Like an investigation thing, and if you were in a different room than another person, like you have to actively leave the table so that you don't get information. Like it's about the metagaming of it, but it's like so you can have secret conversations, maybe.
Ooh, I've now just thought of an interesting thing.
Go on.
Maybe it is some kind of game where you are each allowed to like covertly message one other player. And that other player, like maybe it's like drawn names from a hat, so you might not even be able to reply to the player who is messaging you.
Yeah.
And maybe it's some kind of like spy thing where you are spies on some kind of like mission or whatever. I don't know, actually, yeah. Shadow GM actually is now an idea I have.
What does that mean?
Hear me out. Okay. So it's some kind of, let's say it's a spy thriller situation, and the GM nominally plays as your, your M figure or your, fucking thing. Except, like, one of the players, via some, like, hidden role thing at the start or whatever, is a double agent. No, is not a double agent. They also play the role of, like, the shadow GM who has access to everyone's numbers, blocks their own number as a private thing or something, like, or uses some kind of Discord disguise or whatever. The techie stuff we could figure out here. And they communicate throughout play with just sort of secret messages. Maybe the GM knows who the hidden player is, because they also then are like collaborating with like any like hidden information goes to both of them. Or I feel there's some kind of like board game crossover where it's like where it's like they have access to texting the players in silence and attempting to turn them from the team they are on to like the
shadow team,
inverted comments bad guys. I feel like the point of this game would be that like you're probably all terrible.
Yeah, both sides are terrible.
Yeah. I feel it would maybe be more about maybe some sympathy for the spies caught in the middle, but maybe not, I guess, depending on like what their backstory was.
Yeah.
I feel this is one of those things where I'm like, we've got like, I feel at least Shadow GM and some of the other ideas we pitched are all good shells of ideas. I do think maybe each concept we've come up with is one that is harder and harder to riff on in a conversation.
So you've got this game about spies, and you've all been sent on this mission to recover the intelligence from the enemy base. And when you're going through this base, you all have your own independent missions, which are either secret or public information. And you can communicate to each other, but there's like every 5 minutes or so, or like after every scene, there's a 5-minute period where you can like send your secret messages to each other. But one player is this shadow leader who is trying to get you to do these other secret things, and enough people do those, then the baddies win. But it's like the shadow GM is also like they can trick you into doing something if you don't. Like it's like, oh, I want you to open 5 doors, and so the player's like, oh, I'm not going to open any doors, and it's like, aha, you've fallen right into my cunning plan. I don't want you to open any doors, actually. So it's like,
yeah, I think there's maybe something here about almost like a lot of missions, communication in there. Like maybe it's a bit like, as well as all this, maybe it's a bit like minigame focused.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, did you watch The Traders?
I watched one episode and thought it was too overdeveloped. Like, too much stuff was happening. People have said it gets better in the second episode, but it's like, it just felt so overproduced. It's like so many things on screen. It's like, what are you talking about?
It's very dramatic. It's the CBBC's Raven of reality competition
See,
shows.
I can get behind Raven.
But what I was just gonna say there's an element of sometimes stuff like where they have hidden roles and their ability to communicate with each other is kind of like restricted.
Yeah.
I know. I was wondering if there was almost something like Traitors-esque here. I feel like a big problem here because we've done something that's so heavily hidden role. I guess I should maybe. I was good. Like neither of us are that close to like board games where this is a bigger thing. But actually, you like board games a lot, right? Or have I made that up?
I wish I could be into board games, but I do not have the money to be into board games.
Yes, there is that. Whereas I also just like often don't necessarily pay attention even beyond the money thing. But I think there's something to Shadow GM. I just feel like it requires a crunchier game designer than me.
I mean, the pitch is there. I mean, me and Lissa have kicked around ideas about one player plays as like the security and the other people are like the baddies trying to infiltrate the base. So I think it's kind of that game, but like without the security. And it's like one person secretly gets given the role of, yeah, you are explicitly for the baddies, but you don't have your mission yet and you have to wait for somebody to message you, but you're like, is this actually the Shadow GM or is this another guy trying to delude me? It's like you've got to work out what are the actual missions and what are, static, what's interference.
Yeah, that is good. I want to pin in Shadow GM because I've just thought of another idea relating to silence that also could be a bit simpler. I think this is a game which is like, maybe it's a little like Belonging Outside Belonging almost, or maybe there are like dice rolls or something. I think it's like it's inverted commas GM-less in the sense that I think like one person is the player and then everyone else has almost GM level powers. I think you are playing a character, like the person who is playing the main character, their character has amnesia, and their character creation is everyone on a like chat they are not in front of them messaging to create their character. And so everyone else knows all there is to know about their character's backstory, but the person doesn't. And then they enter this game and are trying to figure out, I guess, like, maybe then all of the other players, like, play factions. Like, they get to represent
You were
agents
so
of
close to
different
making the
factions.
Disco Elysium TTRPG there, honey.
I don't think I was.
Because then everybody else plays aspects of you in your head and you have to converse with them.
Yeah, I didn't want to do that because that, I mean, yeah. But I don't, yeah. Yeah, no, I was saying they then play people on the outside who are trying to manipulate you and take advantage of the fact that you don't necessarily know who you are. The reason it jumped off the Shadow GM idea because I was thinking of the Bourne Identity suddenly.
Yeah, no, okay, that's a good. Yeah, it's like it's like a what is it, Total Recall, where you're trying to work out, am I this guy they presented to me, or are they trying to mislead me into doing something that I don't want to do?
Yeah, you could do a Total Recall thing. You are a character who wakes up with like no memories, is presumably dangerous in some way, because that's why people want to control you, and then all of the other players play the factions and their faction leaders or faction agents or stuff, trying to sort of like take this person down or manipulate them to their ends. Yeah, I think it's like, I think this could be an interesting thing. I feel this is the second time I have pitched a game where either all at once or gradually people like co-GM via faction mechanics. Which
I think
having now pitched twice, I have no idea, is that any fun? Do people like that?
No, I think it's like, if I'm playing as the government, then I control all the police in the game.
Mm. Yeah, but, I think it's, if it's some kind of Total Recall sci-fi thing, you probably have like some fun factions straight up who you can use. Once again, this similar relates to when we were talking about gang stuff, where I was like, I feel you probably don't do Jason Bourne, because I guess then, I mean, you could do various like shadow organizations within the government, where it's like, oh yeah, this players are the CIA, These guys are the police or stuff. But otherwise, I feel maybe, the more Total Recall analog, where it's like, oh yeah, we're Brain Core. You get to play all the Brain Core operatives, and someone else is going to play like a different corporation. Someone else is going to play the fucking like MK Ultra sitch that created your amnesiac born Schwarzenegger thing. Like,
Yeah.
What do we call this game? Because I feel the first one we settled on is Shadow GM. Does this have any fun name?
I'm sure I had a name for it while you were yapping, but
I feel it's going to be something the blank identity. Probably.
there you go, the blank identity.
Oh yeah, that does work. The blank identity. Do you want to do one more thing in silence? Do you have any other ideas?
Let's just sit for 5 minutes and think about games. And then
I think that will be bad for our video analytics because it will just flag as like, oh, everyone turned off before the end of the episode for some reason.
So you weren't interacting. If you're not knocking over your coffee while you're talking, if you're not sitting for 5 minutes, then clearly you're not doing the podcast right. You're not playing the podcast right.
Actually, this relating to silence now. Oh, that's just pitched another idea to me where I'm like, is there something about communicating with like audio clips of other stuff that you have to find? Like, maybe this is almost a sort of... I'll pitch, I guess, one more sort of unformed, out there idea that I don't know if I would actually be the person to write. This is almost like, 3 to 4 people playing solo games next to each other, and only able to communicate through, I guess, clips that they are having to, like, stitch together. I think this is a game that only works if you all are in some kind of, like, clip editor as well. So that's going to be really fun. Because it's like, you are having to, like, clip down sounds or whatever to then play some audio where it's like fragments of a speech and you send this message out loud, and then other people in their own games have to figure out what they're doing with that.
So it's the YouTube poop RPG.
No, not YouTube poop. I feel it's more Bumblebee and the Transformers movies, the game.
Yes. Thank you for listening to Game Soup.